All right, Matt, what stance would you like to take this
Okay.
time? Would you like to be for or against prostitution?
For legalizing prostitution.
Okay, what are your arguments for legalizing prostitution?
It should be taxed. It can be taxed, therefore, it should be legalized.
So you're saying just because we can make money off of something, then that gives it a reason for it to be legalized, right?
Absolutely.
But it's an immoral activity considered by many. How would you be able to delegate with this?
We have
Like
pimp.
the moral degradation of society, people would say that, that'd be a stronger argument than, oh, just because we can make money off of it, right?
Well, when they're too far gone, you put them down, and there you go, population control.
Putting who down?
The girls, the people who are also paying for slash endorsing,
You're
and they're
saying
all
put down the
absolutely required to
clients.
use birth control.
So you're saying put down the clients, like the people who are using the prostitutes if they become too far gone? Or
Yep.
that?
And you need to have a license to practice, and you need to have a license to buy.
Okay, so what criteria would you use for putting down the clients? Like, what would you consider too far gone?
Um, if they're gay.
Wait, so if they're having sex with women and all of a sudden they declare they're gay, then that's grounds to put them down?
Yeah, because they decide that they're no longer interested in women.
Well, this is a whole different topic about like homosexuality between legalizing prostitution. So let's keep topic singular. I get what you're trying to say, but let's just try to keep the topic on hand, right?
Right.
So, besides making more money for the government, what other arguments would you have in favor of prostitution?
Um, maybe less crime.
Less crime, as in how?
People will no longer get arrested for prostitution.
Right, but there are ways around that. Like, pornography is just a legalized form of prostitution, right? As long as if there's a camera, then it's legal.
Well, prostitution is the act of selling yourself for the act of sex.
Right.
Pornography is selling yourself for somebody to watch it, not for the act of performing or doing it.
But it's kind of a loophole where you could technically say, I'm doing it to sell myself, but really you're doing it for the free sex, or in this case, getting paid to do it. Do you do you have any counter arguments to that, or
What was the argument?
basically we wouldn't need to legalize prostitution because we already have another form of it, which is through pornography, which is basically when you have a camera right in front of you, then it's okay because you would be selling the services to people online for people to
That's
watch.
comparable to um, different forms of smoking or of taking in mind altering substances like weed.
Uh, what do you mean? Could you
For
elaborate further?
example, smoking weed is illegal.
Okay,
Possession of weed is illegal.
but you're
But
saying like you can get around that by having medical marijuana, right?
yes,
So you're saying might as well legalize all forms of weed since it's legal medically,
that's right.
because it unnecessarily creates a barrier, which is kind of serving no purpose. So I see what you're saying. That is a smart argument. Basically, pornography is just an unnecessary barrier to full prostitution.
Yeah.
And you could already argue that pornography is already immoral, right?
Yes.
So, okay. I'll give you that point. The money point, though, I'm like 50-50 on that. It's like, I want the government to make more money, but what are they going to spend that money on anyways?
The same thing they do with the rest of the money that they get.
Oh yeah, waste it all. Anyways, what's do you have any other arguments for it?
Actually, if it's legalized, then it could it could definitely improve the unemployment situation, as we might find more individuals are employed.
Wouldn't you be worried that people might see that as an easy path, and that might cause more people than usual to go
What's
into
the difference
that?
between that and stripping?
That is a good point. I guess it's just one level higher, but really, if you compare the two, they aren't really different. And I guess if you actually legalize prostitution, then you could have government regulations where it's like, oh, the client needs to wear a condom. They need to have like a sex test or STD test, I mean, before they consent
After
into
every
this.
relation and before every relation.
Yeah. So they would need to provide documents. You could have all these different measures to keep it safe, consensual.
And it could be officially businesses.
What would you feel like it would be a little weird if it became corporatized, like if companies started becoming like prostitution companies, or do you think it should strictly stay like small business sort of thing, or do you think it should be like government like owned entirely?
Gambling is somewhat immoral, to a certain degree, somewhat immoral, but it has been legalized and turned into somewhat of a regulated practice, which is controlled by larger corporations, more or less. So
Okay.
prostitution isn't too terribly different because it's still immoral, and therefore it's not too terribly different from gambling in the sense that
Right.
it's an immoral practice that's, under larger corporations.
The only thing I worry about, because in a capitalistic society, in order for things to get better, to grow, they need more. So the companies would probably advertise themselves. They would try to make themselves as appealing as possible in order to get as many employees, clients, and all that. So in a way, wouldn't that further decline the morals of society? Or do you
Just
think
'cause
it
they
would
have to
just
make
stay
them-
relatively the same?
No, just because they have to make them, just because they have to like blow their business up and advertise and stuff won't necessarily demoralize people. Like, it's like this. Like, I mean, the demoralization is just simply a desire of people. Like, people are gonna be practicing, prostitution, legalized or not. If it's legalized, it just means that now all of those people who practice that form of immorality are just publicly known.
I see. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea in theory. I just wonder, I should do some research into how the government dismantled it before, because wasn't it legal just like a couple hundred years ago?
Prostitution?
Yeah, like having whorehouses? Or was it always kind of like a neutral territory that the government never touched? Sort of like a moral, ambiguous thing.
It may have at one point been legal. I think it was at one point.
I could probably Google it pretty easily. What is prostitution? Oh, here we go. It is lawful in some counties in Nevada. Interesting. So basically, Nevada at this present day is the only U.S. jurisdiction to allow legal prostitution, the form of regulated brothels.
I think I'll be moving to Nevada.
And Nevada isn't that bad of a place to live, so I guess there you go. Legalize prostitution.